Good evening, students. Just seeing if you were going to respond like that. So good evening, Year 10s, families and staff, and welcome to our Year 11 subject selection evening for 2023. No doubt there have been many discussions between parents and daughters leading up to this evening, as there is much for you to consider. Girls, I'm sure you've been reflecting on what subjects have brought you joy, enthusiasm, and excitement over the past years, while also thinking about potential career paths that interest you following your graduation. This may mean weighing up what you love with what prerequisite subjects are required for your tertiary study and careers that follow. This is a balance, and I encourage you to listen to Dr. Fry tonight and take the time to speak with your teachers who are the experts in their subjects. I encourage you to carefully consider what is recommended by staff, but not to put too much pressure on yourselves and the decisions that you make over the coming weeks. We are all here to support and guide you in making the best choice that are the best fit for you, and the subject selection interviews that you'll be engaging in over the coming weeks will help you in making these decisions. Your Year 10 camp this Wednesday, Thursday and Friday provides an ideal time for you to reflect further on what you hear tonight. I encourage you to make the most of your time away as a cohort at the Haven as we engage in the neuroscience behind your learning, forming positive and productive study habits, time management and organisation in preparation for your senior secondary years. Enjoy your evening, and I look forward to sharing in your learning this coming Wednesday at camp. Now I'll hand over to Dr. Fry to present further information before you engage in subject-specific discussions with our dedicated and knowledgeable teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kralik, and welcome to everyone, both in the room and watching at home on the live stream. Just a couple of administrative matters. In the case of an emergency, we will assemble at the top car park, but just under the direction of staff. Female toilets are directly across in our Luck building, and our male toilet is directly under where our elevator leads to in this building. So as Ms. Kralik mentioned, we are here today to have a look at subject selections for next year, leading to Year 11 and 12. Just before we do that, I'm just going to quickly hop out of here and head to our website so you can see where some of the resources that we'll be talking about today are. So you can see I've left a pile of subject selection forms on the front of the stage, which when we break off, you're welcome to come and grab. They are under our resources tab. And then if we go to our assessment and subject forms, pardon me, and we'll go down to our Year 11 and 12 subject line choices for 2023. So if you click on the download file, then you'll get the form that we're dealing with, pardon me, today. So you can use that one or just download a new one. That's for our initial subject choices. So the way we work it is essentially I ask you what you want to do, and then I try and make that work, constructing our lines. So we don't have preset lines here at Girls Grammar. We take what you want to do and then try and build the lines to get that to work for as many people as you want. The other really important document will be our guide. And so if you have a look under the Learning tab and then go to our senior school, you'll find two guides, one for Year 10s and then one for Year 11 and 12. So I'm clicking on the Year 11 and 12 handbook, and you can see I've scrolled down already to a sample subject page. So this one's for modern history, and so that'll have a lot of the information detailed about each and every subject, including what is in each unit of study and the assessment. Also really, really important is for each subject there'll be a suggested minimum achievement level. Now that's aimed to give you an idea of the level of academic success you probably should be aiming for to this point to be able to succeed at that subject going forward. If anyone feels that they would like to do a subject that they don't particularly meet the minimum suggested minimum entry levels, then that's a conversation that we'll have, work out what the best decision to be will be. Also, very importantly, a lot of the information that I will be talking about in terms of the systems in place in Queensland that we are under are also included in this particular guidebook. So at any point you'll be able to find the information in that book. All right, so we head back to our presentation. And essentially what the purpose of tonight is to have a look at a couple of systems. So we have our QCE, or Queensland Certificate of Education system. Along with that, we have our ATAR system. We'll then look at the curriculum that we offer at Girls Grammar and information about those subjects. And finally, the process around about how to actually make those choices so that they appear in your timetables for next year. So the first thing is the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority, QCAA. So that, if you haven't heard of the QCAA to this point, you certainly will a lot over the next few years. They are essentially the organisation that is responsible for the curriculum that all schools in Queensland offer, and they are the ones that will end up giving you a Queensland Certificate of Education when you complete Year 12. So they oversee all of the senior, or actually they oversee all of prep through to Year 12, but in our context, all of the senior secondary schooling qualifications. And they will be the group that provide all of the documentation for you at the end of Year 12. To get that Queensland Certificate of Education, essentially there are a few things you need to do. And what we are aiming for is for every single student to achieve their Queensland Certificate of Education by the end of Year 12. And so you need to get 20 credits. Now, when we talk about the Queensland Certificate of Education and ATAR, there are a lot of similarities, but there are some subtle differences, so we'll point out those along the way. But for the Queensland Certificate of Education, you'll need to accrue 20 credits, and you can do that from general or applied subjects. So general subjects are the vast majority of our subjects, but we do have a few applied subjects as well. You can do VETIS qualifications, so vocational education and training in schools at a Cert 1 or higher level. You can do university courses, and there's also a lot of other recognised studies, and just as an example, AMEB is one of those. So if you are into AMEB, music, speech, drama, grade 4 and above will also contribute towards QCE. We just need to go through the process to make sure that's all recorded. You need to do at least 12 credits from core study. Now, the vast majority of students will just be doing school subjects. And if you do that, then automatically you'll be covered for that core study. But the minimum essentially is to do 3 school subjects as a minimum for your QCE, and you can accrue points from other areas to make up the rest. A cert qualification can be up to 8 credits. School-based apprenticeships can be up to 6 credits. Essentially, an apprenticeship won't be finished by the time you leave school, hence why it's maybe not as many points as you might have expected. You also need to satisfy literacy and numeracy, which is, again, very easily done. It's automatically done, essentially, if you pass, once you pass an English and once you pass a mathematics unit. So that's either Unit 1 or 2, satisfactory, or a grade of C or better in Unit 3 and 4, which go together as a pair. The other organisation that's really important in this whole story is QTAC, which is the Queensland Tertiary Admission Centre. Now, they are a not-for-profit company that are funded by the Queensland universities. They do 2 main things. So they calculate your ATAR, and they also administer that tertiary entrance for the university. So they've always done the second of those 2 things. The ATAR is relatively new in these last few years. That's the organisation that will do that for you. So now Queensland always had been the odd one out, and we've now come into line with the rest of the states in terms of having that ATAR. Really, really important to know that its sole purpose is to determine an academic ranking for university entrance. That's all it actually is. So for some students, the ATAR will be really important. For other students, not so important. It really comes down to having the ATAR that you require for what you want to do, and that's really what it's about. There's the ATAR has a 2,000 point scale, so it's a lot more fine-grained than the old system. So our highest goes from 99.95 and down in increments of 0.05. As you can see there, if it's 30 or less, they don't actually tell you, just 30 or less. To qualify for an ATAR, very similar to a QCE, but there are some subtle differences. So you can do 5 general subjects, and again, most of our students, but not all, will do that. The other thing a student can do is 4 general subjects and pick up another option. So that other option could be an applied subject, so hospitality practices is an example. Applied essential subjects, so that's English, essential English and essential mathematics, or a completed VET certificate. However, that's a Cert 3 or above, whereas in the QCE, it was Cert 2 and above. I think I had Cert 1 written, but Cert 2 and above. So it needs to be at a slightly higher level for ATAR. Also really, really careful when and we'll make sure that this doesn't happen, but you can't include both a general and applied subject in the calculations for your ATAR. So for example, you can't do English and applied English and have them both count towards ATAR. But again, we won't let that occur. You can, however, choose multiple subjects in the same area as long as they are general. So for example, you can do mathematical methods and specialist mathematics, and you can do English and literature extension, and have them both contribute towards your ATAR. Other things that are important for that ATAR qualification is you must have passed English by the time you get through Unit 3 and 4. Now that English can be essential English or it can be general English, it doesn't matter, but you do need to have that C or better in Unit 3 and 4. English in some states does automatically count towards your ATAR. In Queensland, it doesn't. So if it is not one of your highest 5 options, then it doesn't need to contribute. Really, really important though, if you are looking at university entrance, that you have a look at prerequisites. Vast majority of university courses will require general English and not essential English for you to get entry into that course. So whilst you qualify for an ATAR, it would very much limit the number of courses that you would be eligible for entry. And we'll be doing some of that at our camp. The other thing that is important to realise about ATAR is scaling. So not all subjects will end up having the same contribution towards your ATAR, and subjects will be adjusted based upon how difficult they are deemed to be. Now, each year, the scaling for subjects will occur after the students have completed all of their assessment. So it's impossible to tell what the scaling will be in advance. The reason for that is that they have a look at how students have done in their subjects to determine how difficult they actually were. Having said that, we do have historical data now for a few years, and we can have reasonable guesses about how they will scale in general. So just a very simple example of how a subject scaling might work. So a very easy one to think about is mathematical methods in general mathematics. Now, for most students, mathematical methods would be considered to be a more difficult subject. And so this particular student might do the more difficult subject and get a score of 65 out of 100. However, if she had done general maths, she may well have scored 75 out of 100 because it is actually, for most people, an easier subject. So in the process of that scaling, what might happen in terms of the ATAR is that mathematical methods might have moved from 65 up to a 70, and the general maths might have moved from a 75 down to a 70. So the actual end score is meant to be a measure of a student ability regardless of the subjects that they choose. And the processes are well documented, but very complex in how it all works. The other choices that you can take are certificate courses, so typically CQ University TAFE. Now, in terms of ATAR scaling, if you do a certificate course, there is no distinction between the different certs, just the level. So all Cert 3s will scale the same, all Cert 4s will scale the same, all diplomas will scale the same. However, a Cert 4 will be worth more than a Cert 3 and so on. Okay, but there is no distinction if you do one in hospitality or if you do one in business, both at Cert 2 level, they'll scale exactly the same. They will scale relatively less than a general subject. And once again, that Cert 3 level is what's required in minimum to have it contribute towards your ATAR. If you do those cert courses, some universities will allow you to use those for direct entry into a university. Generally, they would be a Cert 4 or higher, but there are no set rules, and so each university has their own schedules to be able to let you know what you might be able to use your certs for direct entry, and again, we can help you with that as well. So then we have our curriculum. So what are the offerings that you can take on in these next few years? So in our senior studies, you can take general and applied subjects, which we have approximately 23, 24. You can do those vocational education training and school certificate courses from external providers. You can do school-based traineeships, you can do school-based apprenticeships, you can do university courses, and you can do those other QCE recognised studies. So there's actually, for most students, they'll probably pick number one, which is general and applied subjects. There are a lot of other options that are available to you as well, really important to know. So our general and applied subjects, we have 19 different general subjects. We have 2 general extension subjects, which are Year 12 or Unit 3 and 4 only. I really need to move away from the language of Year 11 and Year 12. It's Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3 and Unit 4. We have 3 applied subjects, and then you have the choice of picking up vocational education training, university and recognised studies. For our general subjects and general extension subjects and applied subjects, so our internally run subjects, we of course need to make sure that the subjects are viable with sufficient enrolments to make sure that they can go ahead. So things to think about with those general and those applied subjects. So they are developmental, so they go from Unit 1 to Unit 2, and then when we get to Unit 3 and 4, they stick as a pair. So they are developmental over that period, and both Girls Grammar and QCA strongly recommend against making changes once you have started those subjects. It doesn't mean that it's not possible, but it is going to be difficult. So if you do a change at the end of Unit 1 and go into another subject, you would have missed an entire unit's worth of work that will have to be caught up on, which is probably not an easy option to take. Other things such as any time that you're out of school is making things difficult, so really looking at limiting throughout Year 11 and then particularly into Year 12, limiting those options that are going to take you outside of school. As I said earlier, really have a look at those suggested minimum entry levels in our guidebook. If you don't meet those requirements, doesn't mean that you can't progress forward, but it'll mean that we would need to have a conversation to make sure that we're not putting you in a situation that's going to prove very difficult for you. For assessment for those general and applied subjects, they'll essentially for general subjects at the end of your time, you will have completed 3 internal assessments and have done 1 external exam across Units 3 and 4. In those applied subjects, so that's essential English, essential mathematics and hospitality practices, you will have done 4 internal subjects, but there will be no external exam. However, you will have done 1 exam that is written by the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority, but we mark that internally, so it's a little bit different. External examinations, which our Year 12s are very close to starting their preparations for, and we'll be doing some mocks very soon. Science and mathematics subjects essentially have 50% weighting towards the internal assessment and 50% weighting towards the external assessment. And the content that is examined is based upon Units 3 and 4. Now, art subjects have a 25% weighting of the external exam, with the external examination covering Units 3 and 4. Now, all other subjects have an external examination weighting of 25%, and it is testing only Unit 4. So why I'm pointing those things out is that some assessment will be more demanding than others. You can see that those science and mathematics subjects are certainly more demanding in terms of the requirements for external examination, and it is more high stakes. Really important to know that all of the assessments that you do internally will be moderated, and they'll go to the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority. You will know your results before you hit your external exams. So if you do music as a subject, you will have a mark out of 75 before you hit your external exam, and you'll know how you're progressing, and you'll therefore have a very, very good idea of what you're heading towards. As I said, a few times, VETIS certificate courses. So most of our students will work through Central Queensland University, but there are other registered training organisations that you can go through as well to complete these courses. Typically, there is no paid employment component. Often we'll ask you to drop a subject, so this will form one of your assessments, one of your subjects at school. There is funding available for VETIS subjects, depending upon the demand. That changes each year, and essentially they're competency-based, so you'll need to fulfil a number of competencies in order to get that qualification. The vast majority of those are achievable whilst you're at school to be able to complete them. Now, a traineeship is very similar, however, because it leads to a cert qualification. However, it does actually involve a compulsory paid employment, and again, that's usually 1 day per week. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but typically will work out to be that. Again, competency-based, and again, will take the place of one of your subjects. The apprenticeships, again, very similar to the traineeships in terms you have that paid employment, which is a compulsory component of it. The difference being is that you'll gain a trade qualification, and because the length of an apprenticeship is much longer than a traineeship, it's almost certain that you would not have the opportunity to finish by the time that you finish school, so you'll just transfer across to be a full-time apprentice once you've done it, but you actually have the opportunity to get a trade qualification well underway whilst you're still at school, which is a magnificent opportunity. So another option is university courses, which we have a lot of our students who've, Mrs. Miller-Ward has sent through the listing of our students who have just completed their courses at CQ University Sun courses this afternoon, and with students achieving high distinctions in the subjects that they choose. So we have a number of students that do it and do it very successfully. So we've got Central Queensland University, do Start University Now, and JCU also have JCU Now courses. They are a great opportunity to provide enrichment opportunities and also extra opportunities. So for, an example might be doing a Sun course may well give you direct entry into a university course, which takes a lot of the anxiety out of trying to get into a university course. If you know in advance that you have successfully completed that course and you have direct entry, it makes life a lot easier for you. There are other universities also that do offer those courses. So University of Queensland have an enhanced studies program. However, they're typically a lot more limited because of them needing to be done on campus, and so at 600 kilometres away, it's a bit too far. So our last part for tonight is just actually the process of how we're going to go about making those selections. So essentially, I need you to think about the pathway that you're heading towards when you leave school. So essentially, you need to be heading towards one of these things, which is employment, further vet studies, or university. So it really breaks down to being one of those three. So if we look at non-university, which is employment or vet, what you need to be doing is choosing applied subjects or general subjects. You can be applying for and getting into certificate courses. You can be doing your school-based apprenticeships and school-based traineeships, but you must ensure that you're going to be eligible for your QCE. And again, we will make sure that that is the case. If anyone's choosing options that look to be not making you qualify for your QCE, then we'll make sure that you're aware of that and we'll make some changes. If you're looking at the university pathway, you again need to make sure that you're going to be eligible for your QCE, but you also need to make that extra step to make sure that you're going to be eligible for your ATAR. You need to be aware of prerequisites for university courses, and there is a Year 10 QTAC guide which I'll share with the girls over the next few days. Really important, like I said, if you know the courses that you wish to do, then you need to make sure that you're meeting the requirements. If it says that you need to be doing general English and mathematical methods, then you have a choice of doing English, general English and mathematical methods, or if you feel you can't do that, then the university course might be something you need to rethink because you wouldn't get entry into it. So ATAR, I've said earlier that the goal of ATAR, or the purpose of ATAR, is quite simply to get you into the university course that you want to get to. So then we talk about scaling. So scaling for most courses isn't going to be vital, but for really highly competitive courses, the subjects that you choose can make a difference, and we will be needing to be really careful about it. So I'm talking about courses such as medicine that are highly competitive and have very high ATARs that you need to get into. We'd be making sure that you're choosing subjects that are likely to scale well, because that's essentially the requirement that you will need to have. Pardon me. The last thing to consider with those university courses is they're not always going to be requiring an ATAR, and they might have other requirements. Typically performing arts courses, so if you are looking at going into a music degree, then you'll have to perform an audition. If you're looking at fashion, then you'd have to have a portfolio. Visual art, you'll have to have a portfolio. So all those things are things that you need to be aware of well in advance. Always though, what you've got to do is choose the subjects that you obviously have an ability in and that you enjoy. They've got to then link to what you want to do in the future. So I guess you might be thinking, okay, I wish to do math methods and specialist mathematics because I know that they're going to scale really well and get me into the career that I want. Now, that may be true in a very small number of cases, but if you don't like mathematics and you're choosing mathematical methods and specialist mathematics, then you're probably heading in a career direction that isn't suitable for you. So you need to be choosing the things that you not only enjoy, but are good at, okay? So then we're having a look at how are we actually going to do it mechanically. So we have the curriculum handbook, which is on the website. The most important part of tonight is the opportunity to talk to your teachers, and we'll break off and do that very soon. You will need to choose a core English subject, so that will be either Essential English or General English. You'll need to choose a core mathematics subject, which will either be Essential Mathematics, General Mathematics, or Mathematical Methods. And then you're going to choose 4 other options. Now those options might well be 4 school subjects, or it might be 3 school subjects and a VET course, or similar. And then we're going to ask you to choose 2 more reserve options. So as I say, what I'm going to do is take all of your choices and try and make it work. However, in some cases, it may well not be able to be made to work for 100% of people, and so we need to have a look at a couple of reserve options for 1 or 2 people potentially. So at our camp on Friday, 29th of July, this Friday coming, I'm actually going to be going down and doing a Q&A session with our students, and at the end of that Q&A session, I'm actually going to be collecting the student subject selection forms so that I can have a look and a preliminary look, and I'm going to be talking to the students. Again, if we're looking at any of those issues that we can see arising, then we're going to be sorting those out. However, on that Monday, directly following this Friday, so in 1 week, we'll send the forms home to parents so that you clearly have skin in the game. So you'll have the opportunity over that next week to be able to discuss those choices with your daughters and come up with final decisions. And then we're going to ask for those to be returned to the school once more on Monday the 8th of August with that parental approval. And now to the best part of the night, the ability to talk to our staff. So as I talk through our staff members, I'm just going to ask our staff members to quickly stand so we can see who you are. So I'll be available to talk about general information about any of this. Lee Bartlam will be here to talk about Essential English, English and English and Literature Extension. Thank you, Lee. Jaden Borg will be here to talk about biology and psychology. Sammy Coburn will be here to talk about hospitality practices. Jess Dawes for music and music extension performance. Greta Doherty for physical education. Christy Day for chemistry. Bronte Evans, and I can see Chris Atkinson there as well, to talk about general maths and specialist maths. Emma Girl is here to talk about dance and drama. Nicole Graham is here for visual art. Maite Lacoste Sanchez is here to talk on Spanish. Selena McBride is here for agricultural science. Veronica Miller-War is able to talk to you in general on vet studies. Gabrielle Nader is here for Essential Mathematics and Physics. Chris Reed for Business and Legal Studies. Caitlin Schultz for Ancient History and Modern History. Sheena Tickner for Mathematical Methods. And we've got Sky Calvert from Central Queensland University and Larissa Burnett from James Cook University as well. Have I missed anyone? Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much for your patience listening to that long talk from myself. Now is the important part of the evening where you actually get out and talk to people. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and good night.